Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Unstuck series with myself, Sarah Archer. I am a career and leadership coach, and I'm really loving the hot weather we're having at the moment. In fact, I was tempted to do this live in the garden, but I just thought I'd have too much to juggle in terms of light and sound, so I thought I'd stick with the room. But I hope if you are able to get outside today, you do make the most of the sunshine while we've got it. So welcome to today's session. If you are with me here with me live, please do say hello. It's always nice to know who's watching live. And if you're here watching on replay, hello to you as well. And if you've got questions or comments for me today about the topic, do pop them in the chat and I will answer them as we're going along. Or if it's on replay, I'll come back and answer them. So the Get Unstuck series, I started it about a year ago, I think, to give you the opportunity to have 15 minutes space to think in your busy week about something to do with your career that could help move the dial slightly on your career. So if you haven't met me before, I work with female leaders to create the kind of career success that brings you joy, that you love going to work, the thought of going to work, you don't have that Sunday night dread, and that you are able to do your job without selling out, so you can be authentic, and without burning out by, taking on too much, having overwhelm, and feeling like you've got to be 24/7 at your job. Which kind of leads me into today's topic, which is all about how to be a more productive leader. And I chose this topic because it's something that's kind of coming up with a few of my clients at the moment. And so I thought it would be quite useful just to chat about some of the things you can do to be a more productive leader. And, when I was preparing for this session, I was thinking there's so much out there around productivity, time management, procrastination. It can be overwhelming to actually work out what is going to help you. So I've chosen 6 things to flag to you today that could just remind you of something you've done in the past that has worked, give you new ideas, or give you the chance to experiment a little bit with something that might work for you. Because a lot of the clients that I'm working with are just experiencing that sense of there's too many meetings going on. It's hard for me productive because I'm kind of back to back in meetings, whether that's virtual meetings or face-to-face meetings. Sometimes there's too much reporting. There's too many decks I have to produce. If I'm not working on creating a PowerPoint deck, then I might be presenting or sending that out, dealing with questions around it. It's just too much information sharing, too much change going on, sometimes change for change's sake, but too many restructures or change of direction or change in terms of focus that just feels like there's just constant change. And sometimes too much growth as well and too fast. So I've got a client at the moment who she is working for a scale up. So they are constantly in growth mode without always the resources, or there's often a lag in resources to cope with the growth that just feels like the workload is just constantly growing, and she's certainly never getting to the bottom of her to-do list, which leads to sometimes not great decision making, and also it's not sustainable. So she's kind of constantly feeling that she's got to work longer and longer hours, and that is not sustainable. So there's lots of things that contribute to this sense of I need to be more productive because just this stuff is just coming at me all the time. And obviously, the more productive we can be in our roles, then it helps us to avoid that sense of overwhelm, which then tends to lead to paralysis. It means that we can make better decisions because we've got the headspace to make good decisions. It means we can focus on the strategic direction rather than just the day-to-day issues, decisions, what have you. And it means we can also more likely deliver the goals that we have been set or that we've set ourselves. And it means that we can spend time with our team, developing our team to be more productive as well, so that we've then got more capacity to delegate to them and to empower them to make more good quality decisions. So there's lots of rationale around why being a more productive leader is where we should be heading. But sometimes it can just feel you can't get out of the weeds. You just don't have the headspace to even think about being more productive because you're just dealing with the day-to-day. And I certainly remember when I was an HR director, taking calls on my day off at playgroup with my daughter, just that sense of never feeling that I was on top of things, and needing to kind of find ways to increase my effectiveness. And even now, as a business owner, where I am in charge of the workload and the growth, the pace in my business, I can sometimes feel as well that the productivity is just slipping and that I'm just falling into the trap. And certainly before my holiday a couple of weeks ago, I fell into that trap of just that sense of overwhelm, of not really managing things effectively, which also sparked my thoughts around, okay, what could we think about doing to be more effective as a leader? Because also the more effective leader you are, you're setting the tone, you're being a role model for your team as well, and your peers, other people in the organization. So it's definitely worth finding some space to really think about what's going to work for you. So as I said, I've got 6 things to think about in terms of your productivity, and some are a bit more kind of strategic and some are a bit more kind of operational in the moment. So the first thing I would think about is, what is your personality preference around time management, organization, planning? Because obviously some people are very structured, like routine, like being very organized to the nth degree. And some people are very spontaneous, very reactive, very in the moment. And then we've got kind of degrees in between. But it's definitely worth thinking about what your preference is, because if you're in the sort of more spontaneity, routine camp, then trying to shoehorn yourself into using productivity techniques that are favored by those people around you who are very structured and very routine driven is never going to work for you, and vice versa. So it's definitely worth thinking about what your preference is, and also the people around you, what their preference might be. So if you're a leader and you're routine, you like order, you like structure, but your team is very kind of last minute, spontaneous, reactive, you're going to find yourself getting frustrated by them, and vice versa. So it's definitely worth thinking about, where do I sit on that kind of personality preference around organization and planning, and therefore choosing to experiment with techniques that are going to play to your strengths. The second thing would be to think about when your peak productivity hours are. So we all have certain times of day when we're going to be more productive than others, and it's recognizing when those hours are and keeping them free of the things that are not enabling your productivity. So I know for me, I am much more productive in the morning. So if I start working on something at 8:30, then for a couple of hours, I know that I'm going to be super effective. So I never schedule meetings at those times. I rarely schedule client calls at those times. I keep that time free for my kind of planning, my business work, my creative stuff. And then because my client work gives me a different kind of energy, I have those client meetings at different times in the day. And I know by 4:30, I am not at my best. So I'll do other things, which I'll talk about later. So it's definitely worth thinking about, when is your peak productivity hours and what do you want to get done during those hours, and scheduling that in and ring fencing it, time blocking it out. So you've got at least 2, maybe more of those peak times in your diary for that kind of work that you need to get done. So then my third tip for you is to, and this is, something that everyone talks about, but sometimes is very easy for it to slip, is to make time for self-care. Now, often, particularly as women, we tend to deprioritize ourselves and feel guilty about making time for things like self-care. And also it's the thing we think can go. So I know when I'm under the cosh and I'm feeling super stressed, then my yoga goes, my meditation goes. I'm not so great at drinking lots of water, all those things that I know help me be more productive tend to go. So it is making sure that you are really looking after yourself around these areas. So sleep, making sure you're getting enough sleep, you're paying attention to your diet, the kind of food that gives you energy on a longer term basis rather than caffeine, chocolate, crisps, wine, those kind of things, which are lovely, but actually, don't really help you in terms of feeling productive. Paying attention to hydration and exercise. So getting out, even if it's just for a walk first thing or a walk at lunchtime or making time to go to the gym, is going to help you be productive in the long run. So I had a client who, she was about to start a very new senior job, and she knew that her gym time was really important to her. So she laid the groundwork from day one. She told her team, she told her boss that in her lunch hour, she would be going to the gym. And so she made time for that. She made sure she had that kind of half an hour window when she could be at the gym exercising. And she knew that just helped her to be more productive. She also had 3 young children, so she knew she couldn't really fit it in outside of her working hours. So going in her lunch hour is the best route. And it really helped her to stay on top of things because she also had time away from her desk, time to think differently, time to focus when she was at the gym on something other than work, which then contributed to her productivity. So making time for that self-care, and within that self-care, thinking about your energy management as well. So your boundaries around what energy drains you, or what their energy drainers are and what the energy givers are. So if you have people in your team or who you work alongside who drain you of energy, minimizing the time that you're exposed to them. Sounds very simple, but sometimes as leaders, we can feel we have to be available to our teams whenever they need us. And there might be people in your team who are tend to moan a lot or require a lot from you. So minimizing the time that you give to them is definitely valid, and encouraging them to manage their energy boundaries as well, and not seeing that it's appropriate to offload some of their frustrations or difficulties on you because you're a leader and you're willing to listen. So that's the first thing. The third thing is to make time for your self-care and prioritize what you need in terms of your energy. The fourth tip is to plan for tomorrow. And this is called the Ivy Lee method. And it's simply at the end of each day, you would write down the 6 things that are your priorities for the next day, and then prioritize those 6 things. So obviously from 1 to 6, decide which is the kind of things you're going to work on first when you come in the next day. And this is a very effective way of avoiding decision fatigue. So you're going to come in the next day. You not have to be thinking, should I do this? Should I do that? What's the priority? You know exactly what you're going to work on, so you can just get on with that as soon as you come in. It also helps you to switch off at the end of the day. So you're not then going to be, hopefully, having those kind of thoughts about what you're going to be working on, what's kind of current, what's happening in the workplace, because you can tell yourself, okay, I know my 6 priorities for tomorrow, and it's very clear what I'm going to do. Now, you might think, I just don't have time at the end of the day, but this would take 15 minutes maximum. It's just to write down the 6 things that you want to be working on the next day and prioritizing those 6 things. And it's about creating healthy habits. And once you start it, you'll find it works really effectively. And it's a very, very simple thing that you can do, and you can encourage your team to do as well. So then what's my 5th thing? Okay, yeah. So this is a bit more sort of longer term, and this is about tackling the hardest thing or the most difficult thing each day, because by our very nature, humans, we like to put off the things that are difficult or hard. It's quite natural to do that. But actually, if we make ourselves tackle the things that are difficult, so that challenging conversation, that phone call that we're dreading, that client that we know is a bit difficult or upset about something, if we actually make ourselves do it, then we develop this capacity to know that we can tackle the difficult tasks, and then they become easier because we know we just get on with them. And the more we put them off, the more we worry about them, the more headspace they take up, the more they eat into our productivity. So by tackling those difficult tasks, it's that old eat the frog thing. It becomes easier and easier for those difficult tasks to be accomplished. Also, if we make ourselves do those hard things, So maybe you've got to write a strategy paper or something that just feels a bit more challenging. It encourages us to expand our comfort zone as well. And as leaders, we constantly want to be expanding our comfort zone and recognizing our capacity for doing the challenging things as leaders. So tackling something difficult each day by taking action is going to reinforce your belief in yourself of someone who can do that. And also it's going to push you out of your comfort zone. And then my sixth thing is to learn something new every day where possible. And you might be thinking, as I'm saying that, I don't have time to learn something new. But this is about maybe thinking of 10, 15 minutes that you can learn something new. It doesn't have to be linked to your existing job. It could be something different, just something that you're interested in. And you can think about creating a micro habit to do this. So finding 10 to 15 minutes in your day. So it might be at the beginning of the day, it might be in your lunch hour, it might be at the end of the day or on your commute, when you can maybe read something, listen to a podcast, or listen to a YouTube video, listen to a live, but something that is going to just make you think, oh, yeah, that's really interesting. Because what that is doing is it's opening the door to future possibilities, to future connections, to ideas that could be helpful with something you might be working on in the future. And it's just a great habit to kind of keep expanding your knowledge, your interest, really. So it helps to feed you and nourish you as well. And so what I do, because I have a huge stack of coaching, leadership, self-help, personal development books to get through, I actually diarise for half an hour at the end of each day. I don't always manage it, but I definitely try to have half an hour just to read, because I know I'm not that hugely productive at the end of my working day. So half an hour or even 15 minutes to do that. I also, when I go out for my walk at lunch with my dog, I listen to a podcast around something that may or may not be linked to my area of expertise, career coaching. But it definitely kind of gives me those sparks that then I can use later on with clients or with ideas for the business. So let me just run through those very quickly just to remind you. We have got number one, understand your personality preference around organisation and planning, and try out, experiment with things that are going to enhance that, not go against it. Secondly, think about when is your peak productivity hours and schedule in work that you want to progress in that productivity time. Thirdly, make time, prioritise time for self-care. Don't feel guilty about it. Thinking about your sleep, food, hydration, exercise, and your energy management. 4, try the Ivy League method, where you are thinking about your 6 things at the end of the day that you're going to work on in the following day and prioritize them. 5thly, do the hard things, the difficult things, don't put them off. So you're expanding your capacity to just get on and tackle stuff that's difficult. And finally, to learn something new every day, create a micro habit around learning. And all of those things together will definitely help you to become a more productive leader and to encourage your team to also become more productive. If you have got ideas around productivity that you've found useful, I would love to hear about them. So please do add in the comments or message me with your ideas around productivity. What's worked for you? I would love to hear more about that. And if productivity is something you're struggling with at the moment, then message me, do get in touch, and we can have a chat about that in terms of looking specifically for things that could increase your productivity. And I will be back next Wednesday when I'm going to be talking about getting out of your comfort zone as a leader and sharing techniques to help you with that. So have a great rest of the week. Like I say, do enjoy the sunshine, and I will be back next Wednesday with another live. Take care.